this was actually our first time taking on coverage of a tournament round.
Yes.
Which, you have spoken to this in the past, but the past when you've spoken to it, it's been just from like a perspective or from a fan's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much from like a tournament director for me and like filmer for you's point of view, but you've spoken to in the past, and we already got some hate for it, as I'm sure we're about to get a little bit more, that woods golf just can't be really the future of disc golf.
Yeah, it's a disappointing reality because whenever we're playing in the woods, it's so much easier to make courses difficult without getting too gimmicky and just roping everything off. But this is my first time like actually going out there and trying to cover and like also keep spectators in line, which I had volunteers luckily to help me do that. But we had 2 cameras and a crowd of a maximum of 50 people, and it's a legitimate challenge in the woods, especially when you're in the tight woods like we were filming. I mean, you'll notice a lot in the coverage. It's a good thing we had a catch cam because off the tee, you can't get wide views a lot of times. You know, you can see the initial release, but a lot of times those gaps are so tight, especially if a player moves in front of the path of the disc. There's just no way to catch it with all the trees around. So when you're talking about from like a commercial standpoint, as far as like what our goal of like live broadcasted disc golf on TV, like it's just, unless they figure out a way to put cameras in trees,
get some tree stands.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a way with like an extreme budget that it can happen, but it's just not convenient.
Well, I think the tough part too is like when a disc is a lot less predictable in the woods.
Well, yeah.
In the open, when a disc comes out of a player's hand,
you kind of know where it's going.
Exactly. You kind of know, this is on a little bit Annie. It's going to turn and it's fighting out. So that's easy to film. But when it's in the woods, if it gets pulled right and it gets behind a tree, you have no idea when that sucker's just going to randomly kick back out of the woods.
When I got Lance Brown lining up an overhand, I'm just like staying wide in the film and then like I hope I catch this. It's difficult, and it like I said, it's disappointing because woods golf is very fun. It's very exciting to watch because for instance, the first round, Paul, he shot under par and he was in the lead, but he struggled a lot that round. He was not having a good time. And I think woods golf does that to somebody because you can miss lines by just inches and get just punished brutally.
It's almost better in the woods to miss by like feet than inches.
Oh, yeah, because inches gives you a hard kick. Foot, you might just knock straight down or you might get lucky. But it's just gonna mean that there's a challenge for course designers to make open courses, that are wide open grassy fields, interesting.
Yeah.
Without just overusing the same old things.
Yeah, because I mean the kind of other side is if we took woods golf and we made the fairways a lot wider, right? To where you could cover it easier. You could, because at Worlds like Northwoods, there was hundreds of spectators, and there were some holes that were not great for spectating. Like they would tell them like, hey, do not be behind the tee. You're not going to be able to see anything. You need to go up here. You need to go over here, whatever it may be. And I think there was 1 or 2 holes that like, if you weren't one of the first like 50, 60 spectators, you weren't going to see the hole.
Yeah.
But with that being said, the like probably 80 to 90% of the course, which is the majority of it's wooded, was pleasurable to watch, and coverage wise, you weren't really missing much. Like you could see the disc the majority of the flight and stuff like that. Now, granted, it was Jomez who's the best of the best covering it, so that could be slightly different. But still, I think that not open wooded courses, but wooded courses that have like really wide fairways.
Yeah.
In my opinion, could be the future of the sport.
Yeah, it could definitely happen. I'd definitely rather see a guy miss a wide fairway and have to scramble by hitting a narrow gap through trees than just miss a fairway, land beyond a flagged area, and then re-tee or take it from where it went out. It gives a chance for players to be a lot more creative because, these open courses, we lose the chance to see guys throw a cut roller. Like I got to see that. I got to see like Paul, you'll see, at one point there was a really cool cut roller to save. I saw Lance and Barry throw really cool, putter shots to get out of trouble in the woods. Yeah. It's a lot more creative when you're in the woods because you have to make the disc do things you wouldn't normally do. Sometimes you get out in the open and it's like, okay, I went out of bounds, but now I just take it from here and throw another big hyzer.
Yeah. I think that's the to me, that's part of the like intrigue of disc golf
Yeah.
is woods golf.
Oh yeah,
like
for sure.
And that's also one of the great things about disc golf is like if you have 20 acres of woods, what the heck are you going to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Especially without cutting down a lot of trees, you can put it in a disc golf course easy.
Yeah.
So that's obviously not on the future of the sports side because woods golf will always exist. I think that's one thing that, when we talk about some of these topics that we've talked about in the past that people like forget is we're talking about the pro level.
Yeah, we're talking about like not even just the pro level, but like the tour, like whatever is going to be our highest standard of production quality.
Yeah.
And that's all we're concerned about.
Some of that will trickle down.
Yeah.
So like if small baskets became a standard in the future, for instance, because we talked about that, and if small baskets became the standard on tour, then players who are coming into the sport might be confused by big baskets on courses, and there might be some courses that start to put smaller baskets. Yes, I understand that. But when it comes to like woods golf, I think woods golf, I don't know where I stand on woods golf being the future or not, but regardless, woods golf will always exist in the sport.
Sure. Yeah.
But I can understand where from some aspects it's less marketable. It might be harder to coverage, especially with our current technology that disc golf has, because your phone coverage is basically what we're streaming off of. It's better than that, but to a certain degree, it's not. That's obviously going to be worse in the woods.
Yeah.
But so maybe as our technology and budget advances, some of the woods golf problems can be solved. I hope so. But to me, I think that courses like W.R. Jackson, like Northwoods, like, I'm trying to think of the other wood. I can picture it in my head, but I don't know what I'm talking about. Vermont.
Yeah.
Smuggler's Notch. Some of those courses where, yes, they're in the woods, but it's not like North Carolina or Virginia woods golf where we're talking about like you're hitting small gaps and you're trying to throw 400 feet. Which Vin Horse has a few small gaps, but as far as fairways go, they're relatively wide. But at the same time, courses like that, I agree, are not the future. But I don't want to rule out woods golf as total.
Yeah,
it's not being the future.
It's just going to have to be a bit more particular, and I'll be interested to see, if the Pro Tour decides to kind of filter them out as they move forward of their schedule, or if they, try and keep it as a part of the game, because it really is going to be up to them. Yeah,
well, that's true. I mean, at the end of the day, pretty much the future of the sport's in the Pro Tour's hands. What they're doing, what they're not going to do, that's going to change pretty much everything. But yeah, I would hate so much to see woods golf disappear.
I agree.
And so hopefully that's not the case. But I do like the idea of open golf because there's no limit on spectators. Yeah. Really. Like, it's however many people you can fit in a field. But at the same time, there's got to be something that you can create. There's got to be something where players are still scrambling. Because I think that's the key for disc golf and keeping disc golf interesting is the scrambling part. Because even in ball golf, which is mainly wide open, you're still going to have Tiger in the rough. You're still going to have Tiger having to hit weird shots in between trees on the side of the fairway. Yeah. So if we can figure out what is disc golf's rough, because right now the best rough disc golf has is trees. Mm-hmm. But like, what can we do in the open that provides us with that same type of scramble feel, the same mentality of a player's like, oh, I'm in the rough, what do I do? That the trees provide us, that woods golf provides us. What can we do in the open to keep the disc golf excitement? Because if that is the future of the sport, if we do have to go to mainly open courses, disc golf could get very boring very fast.
Yeah, I agree. Because, for like a new spectator, like somebody who's new to watching disc golf, like seeing a disc fly through the woods can be way cooler. And I'd like in ball golf, the advantage they have is like if all you have to do is leave the grass a little bit longer and all of a sudden it becomes a hard shot.
Yeah.
Disc golf, we've talked about things like the sand trap, like having to stand in that, or maybe you're off the fairway and you have to do a standstill, stuff like that. Yeah. But it's tricky, and artificial stuff is, in my opinion, is very touchy. Yeah, I mean, we've seen like the mozzarella sticks they use DGC.
What are we doing?
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, who might be newer, they're basically wooden poles that are like next to the basket on certain holes at Winthrop.
Like really close
very close to the basket to where you might not have a putt if you're on a certain side. And the idea is they're trying to give the hole some more defense and make you throw different shots, but They look hideous, in my opinion. They look out of place.
Yeah.
More importantly, because you could probably throw those on certain like wooded courses, and
you would never notice.
And it would at least like look a little bit themed, but
Yeah.
they're way out of place.
Yeah.
So, and like I don't have a problem with elevated baskets as long as they're like tasteful and not hanging or like 50 feet in the air. Like,
well, I don't mind elevated baskets if that's the only danger on the hole.
Yeah.
Like if you're putting an elevated basket right next to the water, stop. Think about what are you doing. But if it's just a wide open hyzer and you're like, well, I want to add something to it, then I have no problem with the elevated basket.
I do think like, and water hazards are probably, you know, the best kind of obstacle we have for an open course. But obviously, you can't always just have water hazards. You can't always just build a course around a lake. So I'll be curious to see like what they figure out.
Yeah, because I think part of the issue because I like the sand trap. I like the, you know, hazard and standstill. I like that idea when it comes to like the difficulty of disc golf.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the viewing pleasure, that doesn't add the same amount as woods.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, it adds as far as, oh, he just landed in the sand trap. Like, ooh, that initial moment.
Yeah.
But then the throw out of it doesn't add the same as, oh, he kicked off the fairway. Let's see if Paul can throw something miraculous. Let's see if Schwebe can throw this sick thumber through the woods, or, you know, Eric Oakley throw a felon roller that gets him next to the basket. Like, that element disappears in the open. Yeah. And I think that is what makes disc golf so exciting currently. And I don't think there's a way to do it in the open. I don't think that exists, because what makes the scrambling so fun and so entertaining to watch is simply the amount of trees that players are having to kind of get through to get to the basket. Yeah. So just making disc golf harder in the open doesn't really solve the whole issue.
It's an interesting dilemma for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think it was something that we probably should have talked about when we brought up the sand traps and stuff, but I didn't really think through it until I started thinking through why I like woods golf. Because woods golf's even more fun to play, because there's something like,
oh, I agree.
There's something just satifying about
it's
kick
fun
off
to
the
play.
Fairway and you're like, you throw this sick forehand Annie that pans to the basket.
Yeah, it's fun to play, but it can be frustrating.
Oh, well, it's fun to play when you're playing well.
Yeah,
when you're
not playing well.
When you're not playing well, it's a lot more fun to play in the open.
Yeah,
because then at least if you mess up by 5 to 10 feet,
you're fine.
Yeah, you're not nailing a tree and going, you know, who knows where into Timbuktu. You're just landing 5 to 10 feet off the fairway. Yeah, and you just have a little pitch up. But I think disc golf definitely has some questions that have to be answered as we move forward. And what those answers are kind of just up to the Pro Tour. I mean, we all have different opinions. Yeah. I mean, we have our opinions. The comments have their opinions. Reddit has its opinions. But none of it matters without Jeff Spring's opinion.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the Pro Tour kind of controls, you know, decisions right now, because that's where we're all looking right now for our highest quality of disc golf. You know, as long as they're that governing body that we're looking for that, you know, they can kind of do as they please.